ଜାଣିଛୁ ଯାହା କରିଛୁ କିନ୍ତୁ ତାଙ୍କ ଗବେଷଣା ଏତେ ଗଭୀର ଏତେ ବ୍ୟାପକ ଏବଂ ଏଭଳି ଭାବରେ ସେ କମିଟେଡ୍ ତାଙ୍କର ଗବେଷଣାରେ ଆମକୁ ବି କେତେ କଥା ଆମ ନିଜ ସଂସ୍କୃତି ବିଷୟରେ ସେ କହିଛନ୍ତି। ତେଣୁ ଏହି ବିଶିଷ୍ଟ ଐତିହାସିକ ଓଡ଼ିଆ ଭାଷା ସଂସ୍କୃତିର ଏକ ପାରଙ୍ଗମ ଗବେଷକ ଐତିହାସିକ, ତେଣୁ ସିଏ ଆଜି ଉପସ୍ଥାପନା କରିବେ ଏଇ ଯେଉଁ ତାଙ୍କର ଯେଉଁ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ସଂସ୍କୃତି ଉପରେ ଗବେଷଣା ଏବଂ ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ ଏବଂ ଆମର ଗାଁ ଗଣ୍ଡାରେ ବୁଲି ବୁଲି ପାହାଡ଼ ପର୍ବତ ସବୁ ଘୁରି ଘୁରି ତାଙ୍କର ଯେଉଁ ଅନୁଭୂତି ସେଇଥିରୁ ସିଏ କହିବେ। I'm sorry. ତାଙ୍କର ବିଷୟବସ୍ତୁ ହେଲା Convergence of Tribalization and Hinduization, Kinship Ideology in the Feudatory States of Odisha। ଏବଂ ଯେହେତୁ ଆମେ ଲିଙ୍କଟା ସେୟାର କରୁଛୁ ଚତୁର୍ଦିଗରେ ଗ୍ଲୋବାଲି, ତେଣୁ ସିଏ ଇଂରାଜୀରେ କହିଲେ ବହୁତ ସୁବିଧା ହେବ, ଅନ୍ୟମାନେ ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ ପାଇଁ ସୁବିଧା ହେବ, ଯଦିଓ ଓଡ଼ିଆ ଭାଷାରେ ତାଙ୍କର ଦକ୍ଷତା ରହିଛି। ଏବଂ ଏଇଥିରେ ଆପଣମାନେ ଦେଖିପାରିବେ କିଭଳି ସବୁ ଗଡ଼ଜାତ ଅଞ୍ଚଳରେ ବୁଲି କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ସେ କେଉଁଝର କ'ଣ, ରଣପୁର କ'ଣ, ବାମଣ୍ଡା କ'ଣ, ମଞ୍ଜୁସା କ'ଣ ବୁଲି ବୁଲିକି ସବୁ କାହାଣୀ ଏକାଠି କରିଛନ୍ତି। ଆଜି ତାରିଣୀ କ'ଣ, ଆଜି ଜଗନ୍ନାଥ କ'ଣ, କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ତାକୁ ଏକତ୍ର କରିକି ସେ ତାଙ୍କର ନିଜର ବିଚାର ଆପଣମାନଙ୍କ ଉପରେ ଉପସ୍ଥାପନା କରିବେ। ମୁଁ ନିଶ୍ଚିତରେ ଜାଣିଛି ଯେ ଆପଣମାନେ ଏହାକୁ ସମ୍ପୂର୍ଣ୍ଣ ଭାବେ ଉପଭୋଗ କରିବେ। ଏତିକି କହି ମୁଁ ଅପେକ୍ଷା କରୁଛି ପ୍ରଫେସର କୁଲକେଙ୍କର ଅଭିଭାଷଣକୁ।
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Professor Nivedita Mohanty. And thank you also the lady who talked before you. Thank you very much for introducing me and telling me about my links to Orissa, which has become my second home. Not for me, but for my family. We had been quite often here in Bhubaneswar, of course, primarily, but also in Delhi sometime. And I'm happy that also has been mentioned that another part of my work is also India's relationship with Southeast Asia and, of course, Kalinga and Southeast Asia. Yeah, the subject of my paper has been mentioned. It is a paper or a project which came to my mind only in the recent, 1 or 2 decades. Before that, it was very much Jagannath in the 70s, and later on, state formation in the sense. But that was primarily under North Indian influence in Odisha, Southeast Asia, and but the idea to give more importance to the tribal origin, the history and culture of the tribal in historical but also in present contemporary Odisha. And therefore, I am happy and I'm thankful to be invited to talk to you about one of my subjects in this connection, convergence of tribalization and Hinduization, kingship or kingship ideology in the feudatory states of Odisha. Yeah, let me start with the introduction. Odisha and its former dominantly tribal feudatory states offer excellent conditions for an analysis of the emergence of kingship ideology under the reciprocal influence of Hinduization and tribalization. Its mountainous tribal hinterland and the fertile deltaic coastal regions comprise 2 socio-economic zones with distinct cultural political identities. In the tribal hinterland, nearly 24 so-called feudatory states had emerged from processes of tribal and post-tribal state formation until the British conquest of Odisha in 1803. On the other hand, glorious, powerful kingdoms flourish in the coastal region under dominant Brahmanical influence and their unique temple cities. Of course, Puri is the most important one, and Jagannath. The cross-cultural encounter and convergence of these two areas is an essential feature of Odisha's identity and its tradition, culture, and history. Burkhard Schnepel, who did his PhD also on the his second PhD, habilitation, on the tribal, feudatory states. Burkhard Schnepel summarizes the religious and ideological ambiguity and the reciprocity of Hindu tribal encounter with an interesting interpretation of the meaning of the cult of Jagannath. I'm quoting, the royally patronized tribal goddesses developed into liminal beings, originating from a tribal background. They moved into the fold of Hindu culture, without, however, becoming completely alienated from the former and also not totally absorbed by the latter. In this intermediate state, they were qualified to bridge the different tribal and Hindu culture between the indigenous population and Hindu kings. Tribals therefore became an important part of royal ritual policy. Odisha's feudatory states were geographically intermediate states also in the literal sense, between the center and the classical North India and coastal East India. During his world conquest, Digvijaya, in the 4th century, the famous Gupta emperor Samudragupta passed through South Koshala, that is, of course, the borderland now between Odisha and Chhattisgarh. There he defeated a Raja with the indicative name Tiger King, Vyagaraja, and made all forest kings, Sarva Atavika Raja, his feudatories. We shall soon come back again to the Atavika forest states in the feudatory state of Ranpur, about which I'm talking soon something. The archaeologically important post-Gupta sites of Sitabinji in Keonjhar tribal hinterland are testimonies of the peculiar intermediate stage of Odisha's already centuries before the emergence of the cult of Jagannath and the feudatory states. The ritual policy of these little kingdoms in Odisha's tribal hinterland was shaped by a conspicuous ambiguity. On the one hand, the chieftains of the emerging little kingdoms had to gain and to strengthen the loyalty of their tribes by promoting their local deities and by accepting and worshipping one of its deities, mostly a goddess, Thakurani, as their tutelary deity. This was particularly relevant for those little kings who had gained the chieftaincy as outsiders, either by of the tribes of the emerging post-tribal little kings, little kingdom.
wiederherzustellen. So, jetzt
Ja.
der ruft jetzt wieder an, warte mal. Hello, Omkar?
Oh, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, now we are in the class, okay?
So may I continue now?
Is it enough for Hermann to start again? Moment, you started the photograph. The photograph begins. Ja.
No.
No. Er fragt gerade, wann die Fotos beginnen wollen.
No, die kommen erst.
Mhm.
Photos kommen erst in about 5 minutes, not earlier.
Did you hear it? Wann soll mit den Fotos begonnen werden?
No, the photos.
Moment.
The photos are in the same time what I have been talking now. I have to talk and then the photos come.
Now we do the photograph? Oder noch nicht? Oder zum Schluss noch nicht? Zum Schluss?
Nein, die Fotos jetzt nicht.
Okay. Omkar, the photos at the end.
No, hello, I am Hermann is speaking. Omkar, hello. Should I first?
श्री ओमकार महांती महोदय को आमंत्रण मंच को आसवा प्रोफेसर हरमन कुलके आपण को डाकुचंती आपण सहित टेलीफोन रे हाँ किसी कथा होगापाई प्रोफेसर ओमकार महांती महोदय को अनुरोध।
कनेक्शन टा मो फोन
Hello.
Okay, now it's working. Good. Jetzt bist du wieder dran, Hermann.
Okay, let me, perhaps I'm repeating a bit because I don't know when exactly I was interrupted. So let me start again where I think it is necessary that I should talk that, and you have kindly to listen to it now if it's twice, sorry. So let me continue. The ritual policy of these little kingdoms in Odisha's tribal hinterland was shaped by conspicuous ambiguity. On the one hand, the chieftains of the emergent little kings had to gain and to strengthen the loyalty of their tribes and tribes by promoting their local deities and by accepting and worshipping always one of its powerful deities, mostly goddess, Thakurani, as a tutelary deity. This was particularly relevant for those little kings who had gained chieftaincy as outsiders, either by force or consent of the tribes. But on the other hand, the rulers of the emergent post-tribal little kingdoms sooner or later came under the influence of invited or migrant Brahmins and their rituals of Hindu kingship ideology. Their influence usually had two consequences. It led to the stepwise emergence of a courtly pantheon of Hindu deities and their rituals, and mostly only after a few generations to the construction of small Hindu temples near their palaces. But the seemingly far-reaching Brahmanization of kingship ideology and rituals constituted only one doubtlessly important part of the emergence of the kingship ideology of Odisha's feudal states. It was complemented and expanded by the inclusion of the powerful Thakurani goddesses of the local dominant tribes. Their inclusion into the courtly pantheon and rituals was compellingly necessary for the legitimation of the royal authority of Odisha, in Odisha's tribal hinterland. But in most cases, capitals and the palaces were usually at a safe distance of several kilometers away from the sacred spaces of the powerful and also feared Thakuranis. Their inclusion into the courtly rituals was made possible by mobile images or Charanti Pratima, which transformed the original shapeless stone or wooden images into brass images of Durga. Their worship and veneration as tutelary and family goddess in the palace was conducted exclusively by the Raj Guru. The anthropomorphic tribal images at their original sacred space continued instead to be worshipped exclusively by their tribal Dehuri priests. This prerogative remains even unbroken when the Raja and his Raj Guru visited the tribal titulary Thakuranis on special occasions, like, for instance, Durga Puja. An essential concern of this paper is not to present traditional, the essential concern of this paper is to present traditional legendary accounts and historical sources which shed light on the fate or role of the tribal goddesses in emergent kingship of former feudal states of Odisha. The sources, usually royal dynastic chronicles or Raja Vanshavalis, depict the tribal origin and identity of these Thakuranis and their stepwise Hinduization during their integration into courtly rituals. Previous studies largely emphasized their Hinduization either by Brahmanical or by royal influence, and therefore sometimes it was referred to as Kshatriyization, under the influence of the Kshatriyas, so to say. Both approaches tended to define the process of Brahmanization and Kshatriyization form in the perspective in the perspectives of their final destination, that means the temple or the palace. The worship of a tribal deity as an ideal of devotion or archana murti in the Hindu temple or by a Chalanti Pratima as a tutelary deity in the palace display Hinduization of tribal deities at their highest level. Yeah, now the first picture. The present paper does not intend to question neither aspects of tribal, uh, uh, um, neither, sorry, I'm just looking whether a photo is being shown, not yet. Okay, no, that's there, yes. The present paper does not intend to question neither aspects of tribalization of Purist Jagannath nor aspects of Hinduization of tribal deities in the Russia's former feudal states. Instead, it is intended to underline the convergence of Hinduization and tribalization based on the social cultural reciprocity of legendary accounts of the emergence of local kingship and kinship ideology. In order to accomplish this objective, it is sensible to turn back our look for a while to the place of the origin tribal tutelarity goddesses with their original non-Hinduized wooden and stone images in their tribal and their tribal priests. Visiting these places, their Thakuranis and priests, it becomes comprehensible why most dynasties of the feudal states of Odisha have at least until very recently honored and worshipped nearly exclusively their tribal Thakuranis as tutelary deities, despite the existence of Hindu deities and temples at their capitals. But in order to appraise this incredible width of tribal Hindu convergence, it is also essential to contrast the legendary accounts of powerful tribal tutelarity goddesses with the existence of Hindu temples and libraries of valuable Sanskrit manuscripts in the palaces existing side by side with Chalanti Pratimas of tribal tutelary goddesses. In the following, the kingship ideology of selected feudal states will be depicted individual in order to give sufficient space for their historical and cultural individuality, which is clearly perceptible even during a short visit at their place of origin and to discover their similarities and differences. But before turning wait. Before turning our attention to the tribal tutelary deities of these feudal states, we should refer at least shortly to Jagannath, Lord Jagannatha, as he is not only the only Odisha most famous deity, Ashwadevata, but certainly also India's most exemplary Hindu deity, which does not deny its tribal origin. Jagannatha, the Lord of the world, embodies in a virtually ideal way the tribal Hindu convergence of Odisha's local tutelary deities. His tribal identity is clearly preserved in the wooden image, the Daru Murti, as they are existing. And the Daitapati priests in Puri's temple who still are descendants of Vishwambasu, Jagannatha's first legendary tribal devotee in the jungle. I'm coming back to him very soon. Historical origin is perhaps most convincingly preserved in the grand ritual Navakalevara, the new embodiment in the periodical renewal of Jagannath and Balabhadra Subhadra of the Daru wooden murtis after approximately 18 years. As verified by my dear colleague who worked intensively in the 70s years till he died 35 years old only. Anne-Charlotte Eschmann, through her detailed research, came to the clearly knowledge, so to say, that these new images, wooden images, the Navakalevara rituals, is the copy of a ritual of the Odia Kond tribes. On the other hand, Jagannath's cautious kind of tribalization by the sustainable preservation of the tribal origin is contrasted by a high degree of his Hinduization. It reached its first high point in the 12th century under the new Ganga dynasty and the construction of the Jagannath temple at Puri, at Puri, as the second largest Hindu temple of its age in the whole of India. As analyzed by my friend and colleague G.C. Tripathi, who contributed a lot on the Jagannath, on the Odisha's Jagannath cult. Yes, according to Tripathi, the religious and philosophical Hinduization culminated soon with the identification of Jagannath with Vishnu and finally with Krishna. In the 13th century too, Jagannatha's Hinduization reached a truly climax in the Gajapati kingship ideology as the ruler of the Ganga dynasty and their successors of the Surya Vansha were praised as Lord of the Elephants. Their kingship ideology was known as Gajapati kingship. In 1216, King Anangabhima III is praised in an inscription as a son, the Putra of Jagannath, Buddha, Shiva and Durga. But few years later, in 1230, he claimed to be the son of Durga only. Sorry, my paper. I have to take it away. Only of Jagannatha to rule under the divine advice, Adesha, and the Madala Panji Puri's temple chronicle relates that he dedicated his empire to Jagannath and to rule as his deputy or Rauta. Now, please, the second picture. Let's see where it will come. Yeah, okay, I continue. In Konark, the famous Sun Temple of his son Narasimha I, we find the earliest known stone sculpture of Jagannath, of Jagannatha. Art historically, it may be the finest example of a stone sculpture of an originally wooden image. In contrast to today's heavy wooden sculpture of Jagannath, this sculpture from Konark, clearly has a repetition, so to say, of the earliest wooden deities, tribal deities like Stambeshwari. Oh, there. Please show again the picture which you have just shown. This is Ranpur, because I am now coming to Ranpur. Yeah, wonderful. Please keep it. There are a few more. Ranpur is a small, important feudatory state in central Odisha. It is crowned by the oldest Jagannath temple, the picture which you have just shown before. And there in the center, the white high building, that is the Jagannath temple in Ranpur, very much in the center. Anyhow, I continue. Ranpur is crowned by the oldest Jagannath temple of Odisha's feudatory states in the 17th century and situated at the foot of the steep Maninaga hill, which had once formed the border between the Hinduized coastal region and tribal hinterland, and it still houses a small pure temple on the top of the Manimanteshwari, on the Maninaga mountain. Rampur's history and its legendary accounts fulfill paradigmatically typical specifications of the emergent kingship ideology of Hinduization and still continuing tribalization. On the one hand, the city of Rampur distinguishes itself by a maximum degree of Brahmanical dominated royal cultures. The one picture which you showed, the second one, you shows clearly, let's see, architecturally or state town planning of a purely tribal, no, not tribal, Brahman, Brahmanical part of Rampur, which is not so clearly in other feudal states, but in Rampur it is very clearly. On the one, architecturally this is a manifestation, is manifested by the centrally located palace and Jagannath temple and the socially ritual marked by interconnected with an excellent Jagannath temple districts preserved and reserved for Brahmins. Niels Gutschow, another participant of the early Orissa Indo-German Orissa research project, analyzed in detail various aspects of its systematic town planning and architecture and regards Rampur as a small but very clear reproduction of Puri. So it is both Hinduization and Kshatriyization. On the one hand, Rampur's tutelary goddess Mani Nageshwari on the summit of the Maninaga mountain is Odisha's oldest known tutelary deity of feudal states. You have seen the Jagannath. Oh, please keep it. Keep this picture for the moment. This is now you are seeing the tribal city part. The road directly shows to the white Jagannath temple, and next to there is connected the palace. So clearly it could not be that this is Kshatriyization, Hinduization, doesn't matter. But in the background, oh, now wonderful. Now you can see it. And then the photo which you first showed, where on the right side you see just one front of the Jagannath temple, and on the top, high mountain, just a little bit the small temple. So let me continue. Her pure Sanskrit name, Lady, and you show the picture again, the Murtis. Her pure Sanskrit name, Lady of the Dual Serpent, would suggest a sculpture of a Hindu goddess, and as actually assumed by people who don't dare to visit her on top of the steep Maninaga hill, but her image is what is the center of the temple, is the flat round stone Chakrashila dressed by a Sarvi and resembling the numberless village deities Grama Devata of Odisha. Behind her, two images of Chamunda of the 16th and 17th century with garlands of skulls have been installed. You have seen just the picture of these two deities, which, there they are. And in front you see the legendary stone on which Lord Jagannath was placed. before he was taken by the West Indian king to Puri, and the temple Puri was built then. The Rampur's Rajavanshali traces the legendary origin of Rampur. Now, the story I'm just telling of the Rampur dynasty and its tutelary deity back to the time when even Jagannath had not yet been residing at Puri. The chronicle reports that Vishwabasu, the local Saora chief and founder of the Rampur dynasty, and his brother Vishwalata Basa were the first legendary devotees of the wooden image, Dagu Devata, of Jagannath in the nearby forest. But the great epic king Indradyumna of western Odisha, India had come to Odisha in search of Vishnu, the Lord of the world, Jagannath. When he discovered Jagannatha's divine wooden image in the forest near Rampur, he removed it and took it to Puri and constructed the first Jagannath temple, and thus became the mythological founder of the cult. But the two brothers, Vishwabasa and Vishwabasava, who had been worshipping their forest deity, were grieved about their loss. Therefore, Jagannath appeared to Vishwabasa in a dream and directed him to join Indradyumna at Puri and to become a priest, the first priest. And thus the ancestor of Puri still existing tribal Daitapati priests, temple priests who still play an important role in peculiar temple rituals at Puri. But his brother, Vishwabasava, was also ordered by Jagannath to, in the dream, to take the flat stone, his original pedestal in the forest, and to worship it, as goddess Maninageshwari on the top of the Maninaga hill, and thus became the founder of Rampur. We have just seen, you see, the stone which was surrounded by a sari. This is supposed to be, the first place of Lord Jagannath. Its chronicles interlinked in an ideal way local legends with Odisha's rituals and regional tradition, and even all Indian epic history referring to Indradyumna. In this context, Sharadasa is certainly remarkable, as he will be certainly referred to also in this, or has been referred in this conference. Umar Malik, the former professor of Indian history at Utkal University, contributed in former Indo-German Orissa research project comprehensive study, contribution of Sharadas to the emergence of an Oriya identity and its localization. The tribal element of Rampur's kingship was further strengthened by accepting Kilamunda. Please, the next photo. Only 50 minutes more. I know I took too much time, so I will just try to finish only Rampur. I wanted to refer to other places, but Rampur is certainly the most fascinating. Keonjhar, it's also Bhinka, and anyhow. So let me try to finish now Keonjhar in the next 15 minutes. The tribal element of Rampur's kingship was further strengthened by accepting Kilamunda, a purely tribal Thakurani, as an additional Ishtadevata. Please, the next photo. in the forest. You can see it too. Anyhow, in the jungle about, yeah, this is exactly what I want to show. About 20 kilometers southeast of Rangpur, she resided in a terminate hill until recently, when a temple was constructed for her. I have not yet visited the temple, but this photo I have taken many decades ago. Once a year, during Durga Puja, a 3-meter-long bamboo stick is brought from Rangpur's palace, to her sacred spot, where a grand ritual takes place. The place which you have just seen. Her Shabara, tribal priest, and 7 local devotees start dancing wildly to rhythm of a drum until the priest, the Shabara priest, falls into a trance, embodying at that time Kilamunda, normally staying at this place which I just saw, which you just saw. The priest, this Shabara priest, fell into a trance. Embodying Kilamunda, he hangs with his hands and feet on the stick, now carried by the dancing devotees. They continue their dance until all on a sudden the priest lets off and falls down. However, the weight of the bamboo stick remains consistent, as Kilamunda, having been embodied in the heavy body of the priest, has now entered the stick. During the procession, worship. Sorry. Wait. Yes. During the procession of the priests and devotees to Rangpur, she is worshipped in the bamboo stick by the population of the villages which they are passing by. After their arrival in the palace, she is dressed with 7 saris and a silver crown. And her priests and Sahora devotees are honored by presents. Her rituals at the palace are performed jointly by the Sahora priests and the royal Rajput. After Durga Puja, Kilamunda returns home to her jungle home as a dove, flying as a dove. Before flying away, she has been put down on the decorated head of the bamboo stick, the crown. After 1 or 2 days, her feathers can be found near her jungle temple. Let me just see. Please, the next photo. Most likely the last photo, I'm sure. No, the photo before that. If it is available. These you see, her 7 saris which have been brought together with her and kept in in Rangpur's palace. There it is. And of course, they are not dirty, not at all, but they have been worshipped on their way, 20 kilometers away through the jungle, being worshipped by the villages where they pass through. So this is, so to say, and this is important, and since I have to come to an end of what I'm saying, this is an excellent example to show just near to this is the Jagannath temple. This is part of the Jagannath temple, where the tribal deities are worshipped in a way. And just on the backside, if you go I would say 50, 100 meters away, you see this street, which is prepared and really constructed for Brahmins only. But on top of the mountain, there is Mani Nageshwari, to whom two boys have been sacrificed only a few decades ago. Purely tribal, and you have seen how it looks up there. How many minutes I do have?
5.
Sorry?
5.
5 minutes. So let me tell you a very personal, finally, experience, because I wanted to climb up this hill. I wanted to go up and see it there. I took one of young, he just had done his pre-MA master at Utrecht University. I asked him to come up there. He was not really willing, but I said, no, please do come. We climbed up half, but on the halfway, he said, Dr. Kuhlke, I cannot follow it. I can't climb it up. He stayed back, I climbed up. And now I went up there. There on the top is a flat region of a football place of this size. And there's a temple. I went to the temple, but you can't enter the temple standing. You had to a hole inside, and I had crawling in, so to say, doing things which I should not have done. I took a photo and also took away a bit the sari of one of these Chamundas. And then I got afraid all of a sudden, because behind me, a big head with black hair covering the whole little door. It was not a door. He looked to me. I was afraid. I can be afraid very much. I immediately packed my things, went out to see who I have seen only his face crowned by black hair. And then when I was out, no one was standing there. So therefore, I do understand the people of Rangpur prefer not to go up there. Anyhow, but I was glad to have had this experience, which shows there is much more behind than just political ideology to create kingship. People believe, and there is something in which they are right to believe in. Okay, yeah, that is all. If I still have a few minutes, could you just show the next 2-3 photos? And whenever it is necessary, we have to close. But just show photos, which I can just tell a little bit. Please, perhaps you can show 2-3 photos. No, obviously time does not permit. No, yeah, this photo, but it should be clearer, because this is now a photo of Manjusha, formerly South Orissa, now this belongs to Andhra Pradesh. And there also a bamboo stick, a big bamboo stick is used for, and I experienced it. I was there with the famous Satyanarayan Rajguru, decades ago, the famous epigraphist. I wanted to meet this deity, and we saw it, and the Raja of Manjusha, he said, when he heard that we want to see, he said, go immediately, because these priests had just offered a cow at the foot of the Mahendra Giri, I mean on the big mountain, in order, because there was a terrible drought in this time in South Odisha. And they had been offering the blood of a cow or a steer. And then the Raja said, go there, they are just in the original temple of the deities. Rajguru and myself, we went there immediately. They were just packing up the crown and the sarvis. But when they heard that the Rajguru, who was also the Rajguru of Manjusha, he knew them, and a German student of Indology has come, they immediately started to to close again the and that was wonderful, and I have to tell the end. I put photos how they were dressing the deity. And then we went back. No, this photo I don't want. No. This is Kenduja. Now, what I ought to say, we went back to the palace of the Raja of Manjusha, and he offered us a cup of tea before we wanted to go, because the weather was not really nice. And then what happened? The moment we left the palace, rain began very strong. So the priest, I'm sure, who redressed Manigeshwari, the deities, are of the opinion that we, Rajguru, more than I myself, of course, had contributed then all on a sudden their sacrifice of not a cow, a male cow, sorry. Yeah, okay, now let's come to an end, but I'm happy to have told you the possibility what I experienced in Manjusha. The rain was all of a sudden starting when the priest has not initially been successful. I shouldn't say this altogether, what they did, and then of course famous grand old man, and I was happy to participate. And what I experienced on the top of the Maninaga hill, that I was suddenly visited by a man who didn't like what I have done. So thank you. I'm happy to see you listening to me. Thank you that I had the honor to talk to you all. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Herman, for a wonderful talk and very fascinating one. And I appreciate the audience for listening patiently to him. He had many wonderful photographs and many details of the different other areas like Tarini, like Bodamba, but time was short and we couldn't continue. We had to stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, madam, and thank you very much, Professor Herman Kulke, for your time, for your words, for your keen observation, and for sharing your illustrious journey with us. Thank you very much for your time. We wish you all the success. अनुरोध करी डॉक्टर निवेदिता महांती महोदय को मंच पर रहिबे एवं आमंत्रण करिया चाहिए डॉक्टर ज्ञानरंजन दास महोदय को कार्यनिर्वाही निर्देशक ओडिशा राज्य विपर्यय परिचालना कर्तृपक्ष मंच को आसबे एवं डॉक्टर महांती को आम तरफ सम्मानित करेंगे। दर्शक बंधु गोटे जोरदार ताली हवा दरकार निहाती आम विशिष्ट ऐतिहासिका डॉक्टर निवेदिता महांती खूब सुंदर भाव में सेशन को परिचालित करछंती। अनेक अनेक धन्यवाद। तेबे दर्शक बंधु आज यही अधिवेशन ये समाप्त होईची। अल्प समय रे आमे प्रथम विश्व ओडिया भाषा सम्मेलन 2024 उद्यापनी सभा कार्य आरंभ करूँ जो आम मान्यवर